Well, it's a new year and it's time for a new review of AEW Dynamite. And this was the first episode of the new year. They entitled it Homecoming, the Homecoming Edition. And first things first, we gotta say about this show. They went off the air last week with a big angle. You had all these goofballs from the Dark Order all piling on top of the Elite. They were beating up on Daniel, Scorpio Sky, Dustin got involved. I believe Cody jumped in there. So, I think Omega was in there. You had it was a big war, and it was war, because this was probably one of the worst looking beatdowns. It kind of looked like on the NXT Invasion. It kind of reminded me a little bit of that. When they were doing the whole Survivor Series thing over in WWE. So it looked very reminiscent of that. This looked even goofier than that. A lot of missed punches, a lot of sloppy looking stomps, and just how can you be bored during a massive beatdown? Ask AEW, ask the Dark Order, ask everyone involved in that miserable little segment to end the show last week. Or 2 weeks ago, rather. So, they didn't do a show for Christmas. I'm going to give them that. Unlike the WWE, but then again, they don't run house shows. Which is smart, because we're going to talk about this. Many people are calling for house shows. They want them to tour. They expect a lot of the same stuff from AEW that WWE gives them. Failing to realize that, this promotion just started. But of course, everybody wants way too much, way too soon. And they've already gotten off to a bad start. You can see exactly how annoyed people are when people challenge AEW. You can ask my friend over on Instagram, Burying the Smarks, who does his own podcast. It is a really bad show. And now this is the 13th episode, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, it was the 13th episode. So they've been doing this for quite some time. They've been on the air for over 3 months now. And I'm still waiting for a good show. I'm still waiting for that epiphany moment, that realization where, wow, we're watching the next generation of wrestling or of sports entertainment, or just generally I'm watching a good show. That's all I want to say to myself. I'm watching a good show and I'm enjoying what I'm watching. I don't want to have the thought of, oh man, I wish I was watching something else, or streaming something else, or playing a video game, or doing something else with my time. But that is what I'm doing here. Right? And pretty much it's just fun to make fun of this show, because there's so many different things to make fun of. But the number one thing that we're going to make fun of here in this review is the fact that they went off the air 2 weeks ago. They take a break, and okay, they don't want to make the wrestlers work on Christmas, and that's I'm all for that, because I think that's one of the most miserable things about WWE is they don't give their wrestlers a break during the holidays. They make these guys work New Year's, and not only that, but it's not just like a normal retail job or an office job. No, they're having them kill themselves in the ring on shows that barely anyone is going to watch. So at least AEW is smart, and they didn't do a show on Christmas Day. Can you imagine getting your family together, the more elderly members of your family even, and telling them, hey, want to sit around and watch AEW Dynamite? They know that this brand is not big. You know how I know that? Because I hear, instead of them saying Dynamite, most of the time they're saying on TNT. Now, you might say that this is a good marketing ploy, because at least people know what channel to watch it on. No, you know what I actually say? I say that they know that no one knows what Dynamite is, and so what they do is they cling to the fact that they're on TNT, the fact that they're on a major cable network, and they cling to that, because you don't hear anyone on WWE saying, I'll see you next week on Fox, or I'm gonna wrestle you on USA Network. No, you don't hear anyone saying that. So why is it like a big deal that they make sure they go out of their way to say, I'm gonna, I'll see you next week here on TNT. Come on. But they did not have any Dark Order stuff on here that was in ring. They talked a little bit. They had Daniels and Scorpio Sky and Kaz backstage talking about the Dark Order before Sammy Guevara, interrupted. And then they did like a paid NWO style sponsorship commercial for them. But aside from that, there were no run-ins. How do you go from a massive run-in beatdown, this whole thing with, the dude on the mic and all that, and all these guys coming in, people earning masks, and no one even knew who these people were before they even put on the masks. So without any of that, this show just had no context. It was just a random show. So we've got the first match. How are we going to kick off 2020 on this show? So we've got Taz on commentary, and I didn't even realize that he was even a part of this. I don't even know if he's an official employee. He's a guest commentator, whatever that means. So I don't know if he's like a guest, like they invited him on the show. But he was there a few weeks ago. I didn't watch or review that show, but I was happy to see Taz. But can I ask a question? If we're going to be replacing a commentator, why is it not Excalibur? So you're going to take away Tony Schiavone. So, okay, maybe Tony Schiavone had a prior engagement or something like that. But, anyway, I was happy to hear Taz. It was like, okay, so I'm going to watch this show, and at least I'll get to hear Taz on it. At least there's a little added bonus here for me having to suffer through this show. But that's the highlight of the show right now. I'm just going to say that before we really dive into this show. Taz was the highlight of the show. Just like for many weeks when I was reviewing this show on a weekly basis, I said continuously, the best part of this show is the commentary, and that was pre-Taz. I said Tony Schiavone and JR is what made this show for me. Two of my favorite commentators growing up, watching the heyday of professional wrestling and sports entertainment with Nitro and Raw. It goes without saying that those two were bigger stars than anyone in the ring, with maybe the exception of Chris Jericho. So they choose to start off 2020 with Cody Rhodes and Darby Allin, of all people. Can I ask a question here? Why, when we can have, anything, kick it off with a Jericho promo, do something interesting that we've never seen before, excite the crowd, and I'm also looking around. I forget the name of the arena that they were in, but this arena was significantly smaller than any arena they had been in yet. This was a really tiny arena that looked maybe just a teensy-wincy bit bigger than the Impact Zone. The Universal Studios sound stage that they used to perform in. I mean, this, when we start drawing comparisons to early TNA, that we have big time problems here. So there's a significantly smaller arena, and this makes sense because why be in a big arena when you're just going to tarp off most of it anyway? I know that's annoying a lot of fanboys by saying that, but we're here to be honest. Guys, most of these shows, it's quite noticeable that they dim the lights in certain areas, they tarp things off. They never have sold out shows. Maybe the first couple of shows that they did, they might have had a high attendance, but there's a lot of photos circulating online of half empty arenas. Okay, maybe half is too strong, but like there is quite a few missing seats, and people like to come at WWE for that, and I'm not defending them, but we're saying that AEW is so much better, that all eyes are on AEW. They can't even beat NXT. I think they beat them on Wednesday with this show, but most of the time they can't even beat them. So the whole narrative that this is such a superior product and everyone's loving it and everything's hunky-dory, it's a lie. It's a crock of you-know-what. And everyone knows it, but no one's brave enough to admit it. Except me. I'm a real brave guy. But, so we start off with Cody Rhodes and Darby Allin, and how do you start off a year? Have Cody Rhodes let Darby Allin kick out of his finisher. Darby Allin kicks out of Crossroads. And I'm just saying to myself, how? How is this even possible? How are we even going into 2020 with this? I mean, come on already. This is ridiculous. Kicking out of Crossroads? I mean, first of all, this is, okay, Cody Rhodes wants to give this guy something, he's the vice president and everything, but like out of all the talent, Darby Allin, this little guy, this is who you want to give everything to? I don't get it. They're making like this guy is such a fascinating character that all eyes are on Darby Allin, and he's just a goof with a half-painted face. Reckless, what is it? Relentless tattooed on the back of his neck. Riding a skateboard to the ring for no reason. I get it. He's supposed to be some type of misfit, but they do an extremely poor job of portraying his character. Like they talk about how much Darby Allin's a deserving, interesting guy, but I don't see any of it. No, literally, like, it's not just opinionated. I'm not seeing it. They don't tell you why. There's nothing that you can say here to make an objective argument that this is an interesting guy. Because is it interesting that he paints his face? Is it interesting that he rides a skateboard? No, we don't know anything. We don't know anything about the psyche, the character, because they haven't done anything. We're just told Darby Allin, and that coffin drop move. Is it not obvious to everyone out there that he's going to hurt himself extremely horribly one day by doing this and dropping backwards where you can't even see where you're going? I mean, that move is just a total mess. First of all, it doesn't even look good. It looks horrible. It looks dumb, like someone would just dive off backwards without looking. Like, I don't get the psychology around that move, like how it makes a lot of sense, especially when in reality the probability that some part of the back of his head is one day going to miss his opponent's body just by a centimeter, and the guy's gonna get concussed. I don't want to speak anything into existence, God forbid, but we have seen where much safer moves have gone awry. So a move like this where the guy isn't even looking, he's diving, looking away from what he's doing, we are definitely in the danger zone with that one. So it goes without saying that it's a horribly done move. That the fact that this is approved, I don't think there's any filter where they say, oh, you probably shouldn't do that. I advise against that. Like, where are the agents here? Arn Anderson is back there. I thought the whole reason why he left WWE is because, no one listened to this guy. And, all these people, Vince Russo has talked about this a number of times on his podcast. They don't listen because, come on, guys, we all know about the, the generations that are coming up, my generation, Generation Z, Generation whatever, millennials. They don't want to listen. They think they know it all, right? So like I'm saying, like, people from my generation, I'm born in 1987, people don't want to listen. They don't want to listen to older people. They feel like they know best. They feel like the olden days are long behind us, and those people come from a much too simple time. Their opinions and worldview are invalid. But don't you notice the more and more that we get away from those golden times in wrestling, that it gets so much more horrible? And we all long for all the... Why can't it be like this? You know why? Because they don't listen. If they're not going to learn anything from the past, and they're not going to take the advice of any of the bigger stars who were actually over, who did the over stuff, that know what they're talking about because they lived during the more successful periods in wrestling. If you don't listen to these people, then I don't understand how you expect to bring about another golden age of wrestling, another wrestling boom period. I keep saying this time and time again. Do people realize that there hasn't been a wrestling boom period in 20 years? Are we going to talk about that in 2020? Are we finally going to address the fact that wrestling has not had a boom period in 20 years? And we're still going to talk about, oh, the work rate is so much better. The guys take bigger risks. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? Because the wrestlers do flippy, dippy, skippy moves, they have far less character. First of all, I've said this time and time again, we look at these wrestlers, half of them don't even look like men. I mean, I'm just telling you, it looks like a bunch of boys. It really does. I mean, you're looking at Cody Rhodes. Look at Cody Rhodes. I'm just saying, look at his face. Now, this is a guy... I don't know how old he is. He's well into his 30s, right? You look at him. Look at the face. Look at the body. Maybe not the body, but I'm just saying, look at the face. Just listen to the voice and everything. Compare him to Dustin. Take it one step further. Compare him to his father, Dusty. Who's more masculine? Who comes off as a bigger star? Who comes off as a bigger threat? See what I'm saying there? Does Darby Allin portray that? Does Joey Janela portray that? Does Kenny Omega portray that? That masculinity of Hulk Hogan, of the Macho Man. No, the answer to that is emphatically, absolutely, positively no. There's no men in this business anymore. It's a bunch of boys. I'm surprised that more people are not addressing that. But when you've got a lot of liars and propagandists here on YouTube and the internet who are soy boys, What Culture and stuff like that, you're not going to get a lot of opinions like that, because when you've got people representing that part of the culture, they're going to lie. See, I'm going to tell you that. It's just, honestly, you have to see it. Why don't people look like The Undertaker anymore? Why don't people look like John Cena anymore, or Batista? There's something here about the generations. You notice that these guys were born, quite a few years ago. So there is something there with the generations, and the fact that there's not a lot of testosterone going on here. Just saying. Then we've got Rio defeating Nyla Rose, Britt Baker, and Cheetah. And I know that Nyla Rose was on a few shows ago, but the fact that she was on what was that show? Was it All In or something like that? Or was it another show? Something like that. I don't know. One of the pay-per-views that she was on, where it was her versus Rio. I forgot whatever that pay-per-view was called, where it was for the AEW Women's Championship, where it was decided. I mean, this is a transgendered wrestler. So, by default, look at the size of this girl. She is big. She is powerful. She should be dominant. I mean, this is basically Nia Jax, right? I guess you could say in a weird way, this is the transgender Nia Jax. It's I know that's what they're going for here. Even if just the name, I mean, maybe that's her name, Nyla, Naya, get it? I'm just saying it seems too similar. Seems like, and she does moves that take advantage of her body weight. So this is definitely a Nia Jax style character, wrestler, ripoff, if you will, however you want to refer to it. I am just saying that she screams Nia Jax to me. But, Nyla Rose, there's definitely something here about this. Now, they're very shy, I've noticed. They don't want to say on air that this girl is transgender. And I have to ask the question, why? I think you could probably figure an answer for yourself. I'm not going to get into this and make it a whole controversial thing. But I am just saying, if they made, not a big deal, I don't want to say it that way, but if they brought it to light more and actually mentioned it, that this was a transgendered wrestler, there would definitely be more media attention on it. I said it, didn't I say this during my analysis of the Rusev Lana wedding angle? Didn't I say that if they brought it more to light, but if they talked about it more, if they, took advantage of a lot of things that are being spoken about in the media and on social media, these very controversial things like this, when it comes to a transgendered athlete, wrestler, there is definitely more interest to be had there than with a 20-minute cluster, what. I mean, this match right here, this was a total mess. And how Rio is the champion of this division for so long, and all this girl does is stomps. This girl's being driven through tables. She weighs, I don't even know if she weighs 90 pounds, but she looks like a 12-year-old girl. I'm just saying, it's really funny that that's how she rose to fame when she was like 8 years old or something and got in the ring with Kenny Omega. I'm just saying, the history already on this girl is already effed up. The fact that she wrestled Kenny Omega as a child. Just even saying that. Kenny Omega wrestled a child. And we're all here saying this is the best wrestling in the world. Can you process that? Anyway, I cannot fathom. I will take Cringy Lynch over this nonsense any day out of the week. This is so bad. So bad. Just to keep watching Rio and say that this is a viable champion, that this is a worthy champion. I mean, at least Cringy Lynch gets in there and she does something. Rio's stomping around like a goof. And this is the only credit. She's Japanese and people know her. The smarks know her. And Shida just pops out of nowhere. Now, she was getting a pretty big crowd reaction, but is that really an accomplishment? I'm reading in the YouTube comments. Oh, people loved her. They were booing. So, Shida is popular among 200 people. So they're going to, okay, it was more than 200 people there. 1,000 people, maybe. I'm probably being generous there. But she is popular among a handful of people. So now we're going to push her. And what about this? You've got, what move did she go for there? Shida was like a Michinoku driver, like a sit-out slam. I'm pretty sure it was a Michinoku driver. Why is Nyla Rose jumping up for that move? Whatever happened to, blocking the move because the wrestler is too heavy? Are you telling me a 110-pound girl can lift up this, 300-pound girl? I mean, what? I mean, Alexa Bliss could not lift Nia Jax. So why are we having Shida pick? Who is Shida? I think we had Shida wrestling on a show that I reviewed, but I don't even know. See, that's the thing. Unless you remember the name, unless you remember seeing them, there's nothing about them that really is memorable, because there's no characters, there's no memorable moments, it's just matches basically. There was no promos. They can't cut promos because if it was, it would have to be subtitled, or there'd have to be a narration over, because obviously, Rio and Shida, no one's speaking English here. And I know people get upset about that. They didn't like when I was talking about that about Nakamurphy and Asuka not being fluent with English and, doing broken English promos. So, but the fact remains, if you're not capable of cutting a promo, if you're not capable of having an American audience understand what's going on in context of the story and the show, you're going to be greatly handicapped when it comes to people remembering and revering your character. So I'm pretty sure that there's not going to be a lot of Shida fans outside of the 1,000 people in the audience. It's not like people are really watching this on a large scale anyway. Like, this is what I'm saying. Like, you're going to have people walking away from this match saying that Shida is over. Now, here, bear with me for one moment here. Because did you ever hear the expression, if a tree falls in the forest and no one is around to hear it, does it make a sound? And I think you know what I'm getting at here. Because if Shida is supposedly gets over in this match and barely no one is watching it or they're in attendance, is she truly over because she got over with 1,000 people? Now, I'm sure a lot of people watching this on YouTube or watching it on TNT were probably sitting there saying, yeah, she's over. But it's like, is it really over like Hulk Hogan over, where you've got millions and millions of people watching it? You've got tens of thousands of people cheering him on live, buying pay-per-views just to see Hulk Hogan. Now, of course, we're comparing Shida to Hulk Hogan here, so it might not be fair, but it is pretty fair considering that this is not a popular show, and we're saying that someone is popular. What is popular? It means liked and revered on a large scale. This is not a large scale. This is small-time minor leagues. So I really can say that this is truly being over. So, but people are going to try to portray it that way, and that's not the case. So, Rio gets driven through the table by Nia Rose after the match. Nyla Rose. See, I'm still saying Nia because I'm still thinking Nia Jax. Anyway, and Britt Baker is just in here, and has this girl even won a single match? But by the way, guys, she's a dentist. Anyway, okay, so we've got Jon Moxley defeating Trent Beretta, and again, it's the opening match. It's everyone's a star. We're going to give everyone the opportunity to get loads of offense in. Is it really necessary that in every single match that every wrestler perform 50 moves? How was it that back in the day, you watch a pay-per-view or you watch an episode of Raw and you watch a match and these matches were more entertaining, and a lot of them were 3, 4, 5 minutes. And somehow these big, long, drawn-out, because it's too much, and they don't even mean anything. And they're performing all these different moves, and there's 1,000 different kickouts. Trent Beretta, he did this move, I think, with Pac, if I'm not mistaken, where someone Irish whips him into the barricade. He takes the impact of the barricade and comes right back with a spear. How is a guy the size of Trent Beretta, the weight of Trent Beretta, okay, now if that was, a bigger star and a bigger wrestler and someone of more body weight and size, I could get it. Okay, maybe they absorbed the blow. But Trent Beretta, of all people, the former Dude Buster in WWE, this is who we are trying to say. Now, I know people are going to say, oh, he's athletic, he deserves the push. Who doesn't deserve a push? I gotta honestly ask this question. You ask the audience who deserves a push, and basically, they'll tell you everybody. Everyone deserves a push. There's not one person out there that doesn't deserve a push, because they're all talented athletes and they all perform high-flying, high-risk moves. So push everybody. No one is better than another. It has to be a 50-50. So even when, when Jon Moxley gets the eventual win, gets the pinfall victory here, we've already wrestled for 20 minutes, And it's completely nonsensical because, I mean, he beat Trent Beretta. First of all, like, who cares? Like, a victory over Trent, what does this prove? And then we've got Orange Cassidy. And I'm going to, like, now I'm really going to say, like, at first I thought it was funny with him putting his hands in his pockets. But this is, like, the most nonsensical, most moronic, idiotic thing I've ever seen. This is the whole bit. This is the whole gig that this guy is just, like, some sleazy doofus who just comes in, puts his hands in his pockets. And then Dean Ambrose, or John Moxley, puts his hands in his pockets as well. He copies him. Real LOL, laugh out loud moment there. And then Trent takes advantage of this, hits him with a big old running kick. He kicks out of, Moxley kicks out of that. Then he pile drives, so Moxley kicks out of that. So first of all, the distraction was worthless. Even the distraction and the big pile driver move, a move that almost paralyzed Stone Cold Steve Austin, that doesn't even beat Moxley. Then Moxley picks him up, tries to go for like this big, like, Gangrel style implant DDT, but goes way too far, and it looks more like a vertical suplex. So now we can officially say that after all that was thrown out in the match and all the no-selling and everything, a suplex, a sloppily done suplex ends the match. Congratulations, guys. Was that really worth the 20 minutes? I guess if you ask them, they'll probably say it was a wonderful match that was worth that amount of time. So, yeah, congratulations on that, guys. That was truly wonderful, a tremendous performance. Ending a match with a suplex. Anyway, after the match, Jericho cuts a promo. I could have sworn he was standing in front of a green screen. Then I looked in the comments and someone said, like, the camera's focus was just really good. And I have to say, like, however they shot this, I wish they could shoot everything on that. Like, that just, it looked almost surreal. Like, I don't know, like, I didn't really care about anything Jericho was saying. This just, like, all we were talking about was, like, offering Moxley 49% of the inner circle, whatever that percentage is. I don't know how they arrived at that number. And they're going to give him a 4 GT. So, like, I don't know. I felt like this promo was going on forever. And all he was doing was offering him two things. It turned out he wasn't standing in front of a green screen. It was a real car and a real background. But whatever it was, the camera was, like, super focused on Jericho. It looked like an 8K image of him. I was like, I don't think Jericho's ever been recorded in higher definition. But I don't know. I was very impressed with the production here on that. On this little vignette, this little promo that they shot. Moxley says he's going to give it some thought. Sammy Guevara was out there. They had him, like, pop up a few times backstage, so, like, I'll give them credit. They want to try to make a big deal out of Guevara. This Eddie Guerrero thing, I didn't hear them say that this time around, but I'm still not getting Eddie Guerrero from Sammy Guevara. But we've got Sammy Guevara going one-on-one with Dustin Rhodes. So, you know, I'm all for a Dustin match. I've expressed that I really like Dustin Rhodes. I've always enjoyed him in WWE. This guy got in tremendous shape. He went through a lot of, you know, BS there. He wanted to have a match with his brother. They wouldn't, you know, let that happen, so instead they ended up having it on the AEW pay-per-view, and it was really disappointing that they never had the big WrestleMania blow-off match that they wanted to have. You know, instead we got a cheap Goldust versus Stardust match, you know, that basically no one was interested in that. They wanted to see the established characters of Goldust versus Cody Rhodes, you know, with a big storyline, and, you know, they waited too long with it. Dusty Rhodes passed away, and then just everything went to hell as far as that went. But this match, like, you know, I don't like get it. Like, again, another big move. like we've got Dustin performing a Canadian Destroyer on the ring apron. And okay, he's performed this move before in WWE. And I was discussing this on Instagram with Burying the Smarks. You know, you could see the conversation over on his Instagram page. And I'm saying, like, he brought up the Canadian Destroyer and like how this is a move that's constantly used. And I said, yeah, I remember when Petey Williams performed that move on AJ Styles, or it was during his feud with AJ Styles. And I thought that, like, you know, go back and I'm not sure if he actually does the move, but there was a pay-per-view at the time. I think it was Victory Road, where it was AJ Styles and but yeah, I believe it was AJ Styles versus Petey Williams. And Petey Williams, like, performed this move, and I remember it was like one of the most breathtaking things I've ever seen. I was like, I never saw a move like that before. I'm like, wow, that's crazy. And I remember even on the message boards, people were talking about, well, that move's not physically possible. You know, it has more to do with your opponent performing the flip to help you along. But I remember I didn't care. I said, well, it's interesting. It's a cool looking move. I like it. I get it. It's not very realistic, but I thought it was cool looking. Now they have done that move 1,000 million bazillion times, and it is played out. But okay, I've never seen it performed on the apron before. It looked like it had a lot of impact. It looked like Sammy Guevara, like, the match would be over there. I mean, like, it's a Canadian Destroyer on the hardest part of the ring apron, right? But no, it doesn't end the match. Instead, what happens? We've got a distraction. And, okay, it's a distraction. Sammy Guevara gets right back up. I mean, Sammy, come on, man. Like, you're going to get right back up after a Canadian Destroyer on the ring apron? I mean, if that doesn't cheapen the move, if that doesn't officially kill that move and bury it 6 feet under, for everything that Petey Williams did to try to establish that move in the U.S. and try to make it a viable move despite the physics of it, you know, it was a fun move, it was a cool looking move, but now it's officially dead and buried, and I don't want to see it anymore. I don't want to see that move in a match ever again. And it's because Sammy Guevara gets right back up after it. Jack Hager runs in, low blows Dustin, and that's how the match ends. Not with a big move, but with a really nice little anticlimactic little dinger right there. Like, I'm just, you know, come on. These are supposed to be the breathtaking performances. Okay, and you've got JD. I'm sorry, I have to bring him up. JD, how is this guy going on his YouTube and saying that this is the best AEW Dynamite yet? This show had the worst storytelling. Okay, I'll address JD in a minute and the ridiculous claims that he made about this episode. We'll get to that in a second. Let's talk about the MJF promo. So everyone's saying that this guy is like the best I don't know. I'm like bored when he talks. Okay, he's good. He's well spoken. But like, again, I'm just look at him. I'm not seeing big time heel. I don't ever see this guy, you know, making it big in the WWE or anything like that. But people are all for MJF, which is, it's funny because like usually they're opposed to having characters. The Smarks, and all of a sudden it's like, well, now we're suddenly good with having characters. MJF is a brilliant heel, and I'm like, what do these Smarks know about character development when half the time when anyone tries to even attempt to have a character, they're like really pissed off about it, and they feel like more time should be added to matches and less time should be added to character development and promos. So I absolutely don't understand the mentality here, but you know, whatever. We've got what was the big guy's name again? He has a very awkward sounding name, but they hadn't like mentioned this guy in quite some time. They had, like, I remember reviewing the last Dynamite episode before I came back 2 weeks ago and did a Dynamite review. They showed this guy, And I was like, well, he has a very strange name, but he looks like somebody that's actually a wrestler. Finally, a more masculine looking wrestler. A guy that actually looks like he works out. He was a bodybuilder. And I was like, all right. So now he is the bodyguard for MJF. And it's like, does MJF even need a bodyguard? Like, compared to all the other wrestlers on the roster, isn't he like one of the bigger guys? So this was a little bit confusing to me. But the only thing that was even more confusing was the promo. And this is what's really bothersome. So MJF is cutting the promo on the and he's naming the stipulations. What Cody Rhodes has to do in order to have a match with him. And this was like the most ridiculous set of demands I've ever heard. And he's insulting the crowd, saying to follow along with him. You know, okay, so he's doing the constant like hating on the crowd thing. Okay, great. But the promo, it doesn't even make any sense. In order for Cody Rhodes to have a match with MJF, he has to have a match with his bodyguard. He also has to do it inside a steel cage. Not only that, he has to get down on all fours and let MJF whip him with a belt. Like, he's supposed to do all this stuff just to have a match with him? Like, the hell with the match? Just jump in there and kick his ass. Like what is this? Like, to just have a match with him and be able to pin the guy to the mat? Like, you're gonna do all these prerequisites? Are you kidding me? What? How ridiculous is that? Like, to have him come out and say you have to do all this to have a match. First of all, that not only makes this look so fake and so unbelievable. I mean, I don't know. Like, what was the purpose of this? To have him whip him like Cody Rhodes would actually get down all fours and have MJF whip him in order to have a match. And they presented this like, he didn't say it sarcastically. He said it in a serious fashion. Like, and I know how they're going to try to sell this, because I know what they're going to do. They're going to be like, Cody wants more than anything to beat MJF in a match, so he's even going to let him whip him. Not failing to realize that if they actually have him get on all fours and let MJF do that, it's going to make him look like a total idiot, like, and make him look weak. But watch them go ahead and do it, because that's the story, guys. Don't you know? Like, it's the storytelling that we're doing. Gotta be patient while we tell our stories, even though the story is stupid. Anyway, we have a main event match. We've got Hangman Page is hanging out with Private Party. Oh my God. Let me tell you something. Those guys are such Street Profits ripoffs. It's almost unbearable. We're not WWE. We don't do things like those guys in Connecticut. Well, apparently that's not the case, because you're ripping off one of their tag teams. All they have to do is say, who wants the smoke, and they'll basically be the Street Profits. I can't even remember who's who. If you go back and you watch my reviews of the other Dynamite episodes, there's a lot of times where I do that, where I stumble and I accidentally say Street Profits instead of Private Party, because they're like the same team. They did the same thing. It's two black guys, and they present them as like party goers and stuff, and like it's the same thing. So we've got Omega and the Bucks. Hangman Page is on commentary, and they defeat Pac and the Lucha Brothers. And okay, so this is just a random as random can be tag match. Obviously the story here would have probably been interesting because Omega is one of the elite. I don't know, wouldn't you have the Dark Order come out and attack him and, start off the year with another big sensational brawl? I mean, like, here's the thing, what I've got to say. Okay, so we have the match, Omega wins, blah, 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 like, okay, fantastic. The other funny thing is, what I love is that when Omega goes for that dragon suplex, and I think it was Ray Phoenix. Like, I almost felt that he no-sold that move, but then they say that like he rolled through it. But it's like when someone takes that move, they land on their stomach or knees anyway. So I can't even tell the difference when they take impact and when they don't take impact. So it almost looked like a no-sell to me. That just shows that these moves are stupid that they perform. These big Japanese moves. You know, that's probably the reason why they were never shown in WWE, because they look ridiculous. I mean, it's one thing if you want to do the dragon suplex, where, you know, and you bridge it where you can see the impact, but these quick throws, you know, these little snap moves that they like to pull off, the Japanese style ones, it looks like there's no impact at all. So what's the point of the move when you can't even tell if there's any impact? It looks, all these moves that they brought over from Japan, they all look fake as hell. I'm send them back over there, because those moves don't belong here, where we usually have a more believable presentation in the matches. It doesn't look like a real fight when someone's just flipping someone over onto their stomach and they barely even land on that. So this was something also interesting. Wasn't last week, I actually forgot to mention it, 2 weeks ago again. You had Pac going into the dressing room with one of Omega's friends, who I didn't even know who it was, and I don't know if he was going in there to like beat him up or something like that, but he closes the door and you don't even see Omega like running to the back or anything. No mention of that last week. If they did mention it, I missed it, and because they didn't talk about it long enough. Like, that's supposed to be a big thing, right? No follow-up on that. No Dark Order run-ins or anything like that. No interaction with who they beat up last week. There's nothing, and there's nothing with Brandy Rhodes. After like showing up twice on the previous show, she's nowhere to be seen. There's no collective or anything like that. And so I need to ask the question. I don't know if it's a bad thing that they had no follow-up to any of these angles, because that's bad storytelling. That's bad continuity. You had all these angles and you're not following up on any of them, and it's the first show of 2020. Okay, so, but I don't know. Should I actually be happy because I didn't care to see the continuation of any of those terrible angles to begin with? So I don't know. It's kind of a catch-22. You don't want to see those angles, but does it make it an even worse show because they didn't follow up on any of them? You know what I mean? It makes the show look cheaper. It makes it look poorly produced and put together as a result. But I didn't want to see that stuff anyway. So it's like, can I really complain about it? Of course I can. Complain whatever I want. It's my channel. It's my video. But this show was heralded by JD as the best AEW Dynamite episode so far. Now, JD, buddy, pal, I don't know, if you maybe, took a gummy or something before this show started, or, you must have been in some type of altered state, or I don't know, or you maybe received another, because, you praise AEW so much. You smooched the booty of Tony Khan and Cody Rhodes so much. Maybe you receive an exclusive copy of Dynamite that's a special edition. It's reworked maybe with CGI wrestlers, and maybe you got a better show than what the rest of us got. But maybe if you are still watching this show, I have to say that you like your opinions on things. Like, I get it, opinions, are subjective, but like he says it like it's a fact, like we're all stupid or something, like, oh, you didn't like this show, you've got to be a total idiot, this is, he says it like it's a good show, but he says it in such a forceful way, and I have to say, like, are you out of your mind? This was probably one of the biggest pieces of garbage I've ever seen in my life. I mean, this show was horrible. These 20, they have a lot of nerve putting on 20-minute matches that are this bad. Like, you're actually, forcing the crowd to watch something so bad, and then you have stories that you know are bad and you don't even follow up on any of them. This is probably the most moronically put together show. This show shows what happens when, you know, you think you could do your things your way. Oh, you don't need any writers. Let the writers let them sit at home and let the wrestlers write the show. Vince Russo reached out to Cody Rhodes, offered him his services. If he took that offer, I guarantee you that this show, or this episode, if he worked on this episode, Russo, and worked with some of the talent, we probably would have had the best Dynamite there was. Because he would have sat down with the talent, got to know them, and we probably would have had at least the best possible show we could have gotten. But of course, Cody Rhodes, he thinks that, you know, Vince is a homophobe. He thinks he's a racist and all this nonsense. So he turns down the offer. He acts like he's not being serious. But I think Russo was indeed serious because he doesn't want a job in wrestling. And so he was reaching out in goodwill to help Cody Rhodes, and he turns it down. And, you know, everyone was saying like, oh, we don't need, you know, this on the pole match and all that nonsense. But it's like, guys, don't you see that, like, ever since Russo stopped being the writer of WWE, stopped being the writer for WCW, stopped being the writer for TNA, don't you notice how all the ratings went down after he left? Failing to realize that the ratings were up when he was there, but when he leaves, and people like to write this off as like, oh, well, he destroyed the shows. No, it's because he's no longer there to write for those shows. That's why. Because no one could write to his level. Nobody does his style where he actually treats the wrestlers like human beings, actually talks to them and gets to know them, and doesn't, you know, write storylines that contradict who those people are and are able, you know, and he could write to the level of the characters, actually giving them characters, actually giving them purpose to exist on a TV show. What a crazy novel concept, right? Anyway, so there you go. This ended up being one of the worst shows of the year, but hey, if you're a JD fan, listen to him. It was the best show that AEW put out. And, you know, judging by that estimation, that meant that it was probably one of the best shows, better than anything, because, you know, he hates WWE. So that means that it was probably the best TV wrestling show of all of 2019 as well, right? You know, because we have nothing to compare it to in 2020. So I guess that's the opinion. Oh my God, what a total mess. What a horrible, horrible, horrible show. But there you go, guys. I hope you all enjoyed the review. I'm going to shout out my patrons over on Patreon. Matthew Palmer, Matthew Carolina, Paulie A. Fantone, Johnny D, and Shanberries. So thank you all, guys, for all your contributions on Patreon. You know, I appreciate it wholeheartedly. And guys, subscribe if you haven't already. Click the bell so you get all notifications when I post all my new videos. And guys, I will see you next time.